So, Devan, I remember when I joined the POPL group, and you were the first one when I posted that noise thing. So I was like very excited for it because being 100K on a particular platform, and I'm just I'm being one of the maybe this 2K, 5K followers. It's kind of a big deal if when you see a person as your mentee, and you being a mentor to a lot of top colleges. Why don't you just don your hat and introduce yourself?
Sure. I think just to keep it in a nutshell, I'm a brand builder, a content creator, and specifically on LinkedIn and Instagram, an educator as well. And then I would say have been in the marketing branding space for I think close to now I think 6.5 years, and plus I would draw on and give gratitude to my alma mater. That's primarily Indian Institute of Management, Sambalpur, and College of Engineering, Delhi.
So, Devan, if you were to explain a 10-year-old, what's the difference between marketing and branding, how would you proceed?
I think that's actually like a very interesting question. Marketing and branding are basically evolved forms of consumer psychology,
Okay.
right? Uh, in simpler terms, to a 10-year-old or maybe even to a 5-year-old, marketing is something that helps you sell something,
Okay.
right? It enables a sale. Brand is something that will get that customer back again and again to
Right.
make that purchase,
Okay.
right? So marketing is primarily more on the transactional side of things. Branding is mostly around trust. It's a kind of bond. It's a bond, I would say a bond building kind of an initiative, right?
Right.
That is why these days you'll see a lot of ads, right? But at the end you'll see a founder making a talk, right? And that's exactly what brands are trying to do these days. They're trying to become more humane. Marketing will still be that, the, I would say, the run of the mile campaigns that we're doing. Could be emails, could be WhatsApp, could be any LinkedIn ad for that matter, or a Google ad, or anything, a reel that might be boosted on Instagram. But a brand is something that it has multiple touch points, and it is supposed to enhance your market positioning, the
Right.
offerings that you're giving, but then it's supposed to be much more than that. It is the relationship, the binding glue of the consumer with the entity.
So that's really great. But there's this difference wherein distribution comes into play. So how would you define distribution in branding and marketing?
I think distribution, I won't like label it differently for marketing or branding per se. Distribution is basically a way of getting the communication out, right? So it could either be through digital or it could be through physical, right? Physical slash offline is the same thing, right? At this particular point, it's labeled as phygital because that's how it's a 360-degree rounded view that people have for marketing and branding at this point of time. So any digital media for this at this point of time could be YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Google, Bing, or any of the other search engine platforms,
X.
right? Could be something around all your media buying outlets. Say for example, Daily Hunt, three I would say InShots, and the likes. For
Right.
offline, it could be like any billboard. I think there were a lot of billboards that I spotted while coming to the university campus. Then could be your massy platforms like TV,
Yeah.
radio, newspaper,
Yes.
any
Yeah.
magazine for that matter. So these are all ways of getting that message out. Now, marketing is a way of actually, getting that content. That's the actual content. I would say the meat of the matter,
Right.
right? Brand is something that you are talking or evoking an emotion in some shape or form through repeated, consistent interactions like these, right?
Right.
A consumer usually, as per research, people if they get exposed to like 7 to 9 such touch points, right? In some it is 5, some it's like 7 or 9. They are able to recall and build that perception about that brand. That okay, this is how it is. So, say for
Right.
example, an infra developer is giving an advertising, right?
Right.
There'll be like billboards splashed, right? We've already seen a couple of them. I will not be taking names,
Yeah.
but on-site advertising, that's there where the sale of the floors or the flats is taking place.
Right.
You're hearing their messaging on radio while you're driving to
Right.
work, right? Then you're also seeing those ads on Instagram. So you as a consumer is prompted that maybe this might be a good bet.
True.
This person or this particular developer is trusted, and then they keep on saying certain messaging which builds in that trust.
Right.
When this is done over a period of time, that is what builds a brand. It's, I would say, marketing plus a little bit of magic summed up to give you a brand.
I think that's true. So, how do you approach the process of ideating for a campaign and carrying it out successfully?
I think, first of all, I don't rush into a brief. I try to get as much as possible clarity, which is usually missing in a brief. And then after that clarity is achieved, I do a dipstick. I get in touch with a couple of customers, any of the partners that are there, and then come up with what is the functionality that needs to be built, and then what should be the content and what should be the emotion that I need to actually get it started with. And after that is closed with the buy-in from the internal and external stakeholders, that is when I try and integrate the overall roadmap, the strategic planning that comes into picture whenever any campaign management is undertaken, right? At what frequency, what messaging is supposed to go out, what will be the end metrics, who is going to report it, specifically the POC. So there is clarity of thought that, okay, who's supposed to do performance, who's supposed to do, social media, community building, all of that piece. I'm just taking a hypothetical example here. And then how is it that all of this is going to lead to an end outcome, which is supposed to be in sync with the agreed upon business objective, right? So if I want to drive in brand awareness, was there a brand lift at the end that was registered through this particular radio campaign or not, right? So ideally that is how this entire piece is made into one functional unit, and then everybody carries on with the deliverables.
I think it's just the same as being working for a company. Everybody has the same objective, but they have different roles. But moving forward, I see marketing, is really fun because when I joined Noise, I was a marketing intern there. Though I had real fun in like first 10 days, but then there was a lot of work and there's a lot of hit and trial, you have to do when it comes to marketing.
Yes.
Like, do you agree?
Yeah, I think as a marketer, and I've usually said this on numerous forums that I've been a part of, and somebody who believes in the power of experimentation, right? You're always supposed to do a pilot, get the market response, right? Match it with the desired response that you were trying to evoke from your audience, right? What this does is it gets you all the errors, all the possible errors that you might run into, right? And then gives you like an early checker in terms of, okay, this was the audience response. If I'm supposed to dial it up by putting in more money, right, or by putting in a like more number of resources to this particular pilot, what the desired response could be, right? So limited budget, somebody who's risk averse, and somebody who wants to try out something new will always fall into this bucket, who give experimentation a serious thought. And I'm somebody who's always wanted to try out something new. B2B marketing, for example, is not the sexy form of marketing, right? As you interned at Noise, it's a very trendy, youth focused brand. But B2B marketing is, I wouldn't say an antithesis to it, but then it's slightly much more serious form of marketing. Over here, I would say that there's usually a lot of scope, because it's an uncharted territory and people usually shy away from experimenting. But I think that is something that has really helped in gaining ground in B2B marketing, and social media, for that matter, is just one example. Is very underexplored in B2B marketing, but it holds immense potential, but because it can actually get you good amount of business and good number of leads as well. Right, so that's something that I've tried and it's really worked, and it's actually tried and tested.
You're talking about the B2B, right?
Yes.
And when it comes to social media, a lot of creators, I won't name them, but they say that the market is very saturated. Do you agree?
For B2B?
No, specifically
creators?
for, but when it comes to, social media, for example, a particular platform like Instagram, a lot of creators might have this opinion that the market is already saturated, like not considering B2B, B2C or something, but still the market is like very saturated when it comes to, a lot of people creating content on that particular platform, and how you basically stand out.
Okay, so I think to each its own, but my personal opinion in this particular regard has been that, if you're true to your content, if you know the pulse of the market, you will always have takers and brands who would like to come forward and collaborate with you, and that will always be the case. People usually shy away from, even making that head start, but that shouldn't be a deterrent that, okay, the market is saturated. Just like, there are a lot of flats and floors available, but still there are developers out there, right? Because everybody is catering to a very specific type of market. It can't be one size fits all. If you are somebody who believes that, okay, mythology is
The core.
your area of content expertise or something that excites you, you'll still have a Lindsay Holiday publishing videos on YouTube and still garnering millions of views, right? Somebody who's into astrology, you'll still have people who are there, like different gurus and all, who are doing that kind of content, and they still have like great amount of views. So it's just about building that relatability with your audience, which is going to keep you going.
That pretty much makes sense. But moving past it, so your interest in marketing obviously made you change your career paths from engineering to marketing now. So how is it like when you compare both the fields? Do you feel the guilt of leaving engineering?
I won't say that I have completely left engineering for that matter, because um my area of expertise was in fiber optics, which is the basis for digital transformation.
Okay.
And I'm working in a certain sector in which digital transformation is one of the solutions that is being catered for clientele and for prospects. I think I haven't left that completely. It's just that I interned and then I worked for a very well-known brand, and I got that kind of opportunity and visibility that, okay, if I intend to become a manager, I'm supposed to get into an MBA, right? An MBA program, and what better than getting into one of the IIMs. And then over there I realized that I was seeking clarity of thought, finance or marketing. But then I realized by the end of the second semester itself that maybe I'm not cut out for finance, though I secured a pre-placement offer in corporate finance, but then I transitioned towards marketing. And it's not just marketing alone, because I think marketing cannot survive without strategy, without analytics, and branding and sales. It's a complete unit of its own, and then it gradually evolves into business and leadership kind of roles, the kind of roles that I'm exposed to now. And I won't say that I've left the engineer in me behind. That person is still here, intervening as and when required.
Makes sense. So is it somewhere in your current job role? Is it like your engineering, the engineer in you, comes up?
Yeah, sure. I think one of the most recent examples has been actually building an automation tool,
Okay.
right? And then that automation tool is actually matched with the complete piece of I would say business, demand, and marketing. So both are working in parallel, and that's where the martech person has come into being. That's marketing plus tech.
Tech. Makes sense. So, your background includes working with startups and established tech companies. While you were working for these, I am sure that you must have encountered some unique challenges and opportunities. Would you like to discuss some?
I think there's one broad area of difference. Established firms have systems and processes in place, right? So everything is very, I would say, structured and cut out in terms of, okay, this is what needs to be done, right? For a startup, these things are still in process of being formed, right? So that's where there is a lot of opportunity for somebody who wants to get into this kind of a role where you are actually building something from scratch, and you're covering that 0 to 1 kind of a journey, right? I think that's what really sets it apart. But then of late there has also been a trend where a lot of mature firms are also having very exciting roles coming up, where you can actually drive an entire geography, or maybe build an entire product stack. And that's where the entrepreneurial kind of mindset also comes into being. And it's how somebody looks at it as an opportunity or as a challenge. as a firm believer of opening up more opportunities for self, I have always looked at the glass half full,
Correct.
and I think that's the kind of mindset that will actually uh, make it or break it for an individual. And
I think,
yeah,
yeah, that goes on and on then.
yes.
But, in the field of product marketing and branding space, there might be some steps involved, obviously. According to you, what's the hardest step and how do you cross it?
I think for both there is one step which is I think the hardest for and stays across as common across I think for all functions for that matter, and that is getting a buy-in. So, and that's because you need to get and first of all gather thoughts, consolidate it, and then rework on something, right, and make a much more better and refined version. So the internal and external stakeholder buy-in is something that uh, can really make or break a product, because something needs to be launched at a certain pulse of the market. But if there are no feedback mechanisms in place, it's going to defer, delay, postpone, or maybe completely scrap the product, right?
Makes
Because
sense.
everything is time is of the essence and everything is timed, and that is why it's one of the biggest opportunities slash challenges for anybody who's a product manager or a brand manager or a product marketing manager per se.
Right. There are a lot of brands, and as a marketer, you might look at several brands for that matter. Is there any one brand that has fascinate? Okay. Is there any one brand that has fascinated you?
I think from a social media perspective, I think it would be like much more relevant.
Mm-hmm.
The one from Mumbai Police,
Okay.
I think it really stands out because it's giving the right set of messaging, setting an example, asking people to become more responsible, and still leaving some sort of a sentiment every single post of theirs specifically. And in an offline format, I think I was recently there in the
Mm-hmm.
northeast, and Border Roads Organization (BRO), they come up with very witty one-liners or two-liners, and those are like messages. These messages are there all across. Whenever you're
Mm-hmm.
crossing like a border road
Yeah.
of strategic importance for that matter, and they're like quirky, I would say, and leaves a very weird sense of humor with you that, okay, very hard hitting, it is supposed to humiliate you, but at the same time also, you know,
It's
uh,
funny.
provoking you in a manner to become a responsible driver, right? Because these roads are at like
Huge
X amount,
altitude.
like altitude, and in terms of height, and it becomes extremely crucial that somebody is driving safely there. So both are like government entities, but then they have mastered the art of actually reaching out to the masses, and that too in a very, I would say, in a unique manner. Yeah.
And that's awesome. Listening to you right now, I feel that I have to work upon and brush upon a lot of things. So, one question that I want to ask you personally is, what skills do I have to acquire to be selected as a member in your team?
I think there's just one skill, and that's I would say the way you receive and give feedback.
All right.
Because skills are something that maybe you can always work on, and they get honed with time and experience. But as an individual, how are you when you face a failure, right? Or when you face a success? Is the success going to get to your head, and are you going to shirk from your responsibilities, or is the failure going to get you in the dumps, right? So
Makes sense.
you should know how to maintain a very fine line, and at the same time ensure that you are a healthy, functional, emotional, and psychologically balanced individual who knows and has their head on their shoulders, and that's to it.
And if we talk about, I think these are some of the skills that comes with the hit and trial process, definitely. But what about the soft skills? Because when I see a lot of interviews, I see a lot of recruiters follow you on what kind of soft skills you have. So as a marketer, what would you say?
I think soft skills have, I would say, for a larger part, have been undermined, right? So when you talk about body language, when you talk about your diction, or your tone, tonality, facial expressions, the way you are emoting to something, right? All of these things need to be in sync, specifically during an interview, for that matter, because if I am looking in one very specific direction, it would look that maybe I'm trying to fetch answers from the universe, right? Or if I'm talking too fast, it could be a very good proxy that maybe I'm lying, right? So these are certain aspects which maybe, and to a very large extent, a seasoned recruiter would be able to spot, right? That is why these are of extreme importance whenever you want to like get into an interview kind of a mode, and becomes extremely important if it is for a specific brand which according to you falls into your dream firms or a dream company list.
Truly makes sense. So when I see marketing, there are a lot of things which includes making data, striking a balance between data mining, and sorting things out between qualitative and quantitative data. So how do you strike a balance between the qualitative and the quantitative aspect of data?
I think that's a very relevant question. I think qualitative is primarily everything that you're going to get in terms of a response, and quantitative is something that would be measured in terms of, say for example, hardcore numbers, right? If I'm talking about, I'll just take a hypothetical example here. If there was a certain campaign that a brand rolled out during maybe Super Bowl, right? And we have numerous such campaigns. The one that was undertaken by Cheetos with a celebrity couple, and there was a huge, I would say, an uplift in terms of the brand mentions, right? I actually went and checked during the time period, and that the brand had actually gone like significantly up, because for a Super Bowl is a very expensive premium kind of property. To advertise in cost millions of dollars just to advertise in a very small, like in a few seconds only. And then what was the monetary worth of that kind of a ad that was put out? So the sales went up, right? So here your data and your qualitative response are in sync, right? And ideally in most cases it is supposed to be so, right? And that's where the understanding of how the backend works, how databases are built, or how you send out certain communications through different automation platforms and tools and techniques, right? And then marrying it with the first set of response that you're getting from the market, right? All of this needs to be in sync.
Makes sense, but when you talk about the okay, a follow-up question on this particular thing. When you talk about being one of the ones who noticed how Super Bowl works and how people pay millions just to be there for like seconds. So, we see a rise in sales. Obviously, like the brand's going to get more sales, more money coming in. But how do you, as a marketer, make it sustainable that the sales last longer and they just don't end by spending millions for like a period of 2 months?
Okay, I think it's an excellent question from a campaign management point of view, right? Every campaign usually has three different stages. One is the pre-buzz, right, where you're trying to generate an initial traction on what you would be coming up with. Could be a product launch, could be a brand launch, could be a feature launch, right, or could be a market entry that you might be undertaking. Then there is the duration of the launch, maybe a week, a month, or a quarter long. It's almost like a festival of sorts for marketers, where you are actually rolling out campaigns across media. And then the third part, which usually people miss out on, is the sustenance,
Yeah.
right? That's the post launch. So there are certain interventions that are plugged online and offline by brands, so that the recall value of a certain campaign continues to keep up with its momentum, right? We notice that when I'm just drawing an analogy here, for your search,
Yeah.
the search that you undertake for any particular product type, there are short tail keywords, high volume, less relevance. in terms of your product. Then there are certain medium keywords, right, which have a mix of both, and then there are long tail keywords, right, which is primarily the tail end of your entire search traffic. It carries an equal amount of importance, right. Just drawing an analogy that these patterns can be, you can actually draw an analogy and note and observe that these carry equal amount of weightage. Your sustenance is as important, is as holds as importance, as much of importance as there is for your pre-buzz and for your duration of the launch. So yes.
That pretty much answers my question. And this saying that, our episode comes to an end, and I'm sure that the audience is has gained a lot. Okay, so I'm sure that the audience has gained a lot of insights as to what Devan has mentioned about marketing, personal branding, and the space of advertising, with a touch of personal branding in it. And stay tuned for our next episode. Thank you so much.